The title of my 3G is What is Nervousness and How Can We Be Released from It? Investigating and inquiring. The reason why I decided to do this project is because in last 3G, I had presentation with student in the same classroom. And because I'm type of person who is most likely to get nervous, I wasn't able to present well. I recently found out that many of my friends in the same group are the same type as me. So, I wanted to make a guidebook that can help those of my friends and myself with how to deal with nervousness or how you can help yourself in those situations. For key concept, I chose development. This is because all of the steps for this project is almost similar to my last 3G. From these steps, I wanted to test myself how much I have grown from the previous 3G. And my learner profile is reflective. This is related to my outcome, which will be a guidebook. That in my last action, I will get feedback from my friends about it, and I will ask about what they think I should do, more or less. Also, after I'm finished with all of my project, I will reflect myself like I said for the key concept. Prior knowledge. On the left side, it's written in 3 parts, and this is what I have learned from the other subject. Information for the guidebook and interviewing skills, such as interviewing politely. And on the right side, knowledge of the skills that I gained from previous 3G project. This is what I have learned from the last 3G. What I will need. This is most likely a skills. For my project, I will mostly want to gain interviewing skills. That is by email. And the reason for that is because our school was closed considered to our coronavirus. So I used email to get some feedback from my friends. Planning. Next is rubric. The top one in the rubric is for when I interview, which is goal number 2. And the middle one of the rubric is for when I research, which is goal number 3. And the bottom one of the rubric is for goal number 1 and the criteria for the success of my outcome. This rubric is challenging for me, and it has 3 reasons. First is because in my last 3G project, I interviewed on Manabox. But for this time, I have to ask in person, girls and boys. And I'm not used to talking with somebody that I've never talked to. So this will be a new try for me. Second one is about how much I can get deep into the information. The different part from my last project is how I would recommend the skills and technique. In my last 3G, I only wrote about what I have researched. But for this time, I will write about what I have researched and what they should do to decrease their nervousness. Last one is how I would organize the guidebook. My last 3G outcome about music was very unorganized and it was hard to understand. So, I will challenge myself and see how I can use those failures this time. And like I said for goal, these steps are kind of same as my last 3G project, and after I'm finished with everything, I will reflect myself and see how much I have developed. Action plan. Most of my plans went pretty well, only that when I was trying to test the recommendation from the MOI student, I did not have assessment, so it took a little time for me to take those action. But even if I wasn't finished with those action, I started making guidebook with the information that I've got so that my outcome will not be late for the deadline. Taking action. My first action was interviewing, which means that I have to be very polite. And it's the new skills that I have to gain for this project. Questions that I have asked were what they are most likely to do when they're nervous, and how they would decrease those nervousness. I decided to do this interview because I can test myself with the recommendation that I got, and if it works just as fine, I can recommend it on the guidebook. My next action is researching. For researching, I learned deep about humans' body and ideas that they should do to not have trouble getting nervous. These were the only 3 questions that I have researched, but there were many answers for only 3 questions. My last action was making guidebook, and this was the most hard part. I was mostly paying attention to how I would organize the information. That is because one of the concerns that I had about my previous 3G was that my guidebook was very unorganized. So, for my action, I got feedback from about 8 friends and asked if they think that I have something that I should fix about my guidebook. 6 of them answered yes, and 2 people answered no. On the right side, it writes about the recommendations that I got from those 6 friends. And like I said, after I was done with each action, I reflected myself about if I am developing from my last 3G and if I'm success with those each action. This is my outcome. I made many pages and many pictures with less sentence in one page. In that way, I think students who is not good at English can try to read it more than just writing a lot of sentence in one page. From this reason, I also separated guidebook in 2. One of them is easier information and it's easier to understand. Another one is a little bit hard guidebook. Also, on that easier guidebook on page number 3, I only wrote about things that you should do to decrease nervousness. Reason for this is for readers to not get too conscious about getting nervous. Reflecting. Self-assessment. First, to make my guidebook believable, I was going to write name of people I interviewed. But I forgot to get those people's permission, which was a huge mistake. But I still interviewed more than 5 teachers and more than 5 students. So, if I didn't make those mistakes, I could have got 7 or 8. Next, I think for the middle rubric, I did a good job on it. And when I got feedback about my guidebook, none of the students were concerned about information in the guidebook. So I scored it 8. And the last one. I personally think that it wasn't so bad. But when I asked about the parts that I should fix in guidebook, there were some comments about how I can make it even more better. So I scored it 7. As conclusion, I think I was able to develop skills and knowledge compared to my last 3G. And each time I took action, I reflected myself, and if I wasn't satisfied with what I was doing or the answers that I got, I was always able to find ways that I can improve. These are the skills that I have gained. Asking skills on email or in person, and organizing skills. I think that I was able to use skills and knowledge that I had from other subject or the previous 3G and gain knowledge and skills that I needed for this project, which is killing 2 birds in 1 stone. This is it for my 3G project. Thank you for listening.